In the news tonight, Iraqi special forces push deeper into Daesh-held districts in eastern Mosul, and army units fight the terrorist group inside a military base north of the city. Theresa May says Britain will quit the European Union single market after Brexit, squashing speculation she would seek a compromise deal to stay inside the bloc. And Rouhani says any talk of renegotiating Tehran's nuclear deal with world power is meaningless, and US President-elect Donald Trump can do very little when he goes to the White House. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. The lower house of parliament continued its debate of the 2017 draft budget law during a session chaired by Speaker Atif al-Tarawni and attended by the Prime Minister and cabinet members. Today was the third day of the budget debate, in which a number of House representatives took the floor to voice their views and demands. They urged the government to take tougher actions to combat financial corruption and curb tax evasion, as well as to impose strict austerity measures and to cut public spending. Many House members seconded His Majesty's call to shrink the high salaries and incentives of senior officials. Others described the labour market as chaotic and demanded that work permits and visas issued to foreign labour be under more control. One lawmaker raised the issue of youth employment, saying unemployment among this segment of society renders them easy puppets in the hands of extremist and evil groups, cautioning against the widespread poverty and lack of work opportunities among the youth. Minister of Foreign and Expatriates Affairs Ayman Safadi discussed with Special UN Envoy to Yemen Ismail Wuld Sheikh Ahmed here in Amman efforts to resolve the conflict in Yemen. Safadi reiterated Jordan's support of efforts to bring peace to Yemen according to international resolutions, including UN Security Council Resolution 2216, the Gulf Initiative and the outcome of the national dialogue. Wuld Sheikh briefed the foreign minister on latest endeavors to end the crisis, highlighting the important role Jordan plays to diffuse tensions and achieve peace and security in the region. Separately, As-Safadi and Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait discussed in a telephone conversation ongoing cooperation between Amman and Cairo, as well as preparation for the upcoming Arab Summit Jordan is hosting in March. As-Safadi also received phone calls from his Bahraini counterpart Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa and his Egyptian counterpart Sameh Shukri, during which they discussed bilateral ties and ongoing developments in the region. Several hundreds of mourners attended a funeral for a Palestinian youth who was killed by Israeli border police during a clash with protesters in the occupied West Bank. The funeral for the 17-year-old Palestinian was held in the West Bank village of Taqwa near Bethlehem. Elsewhere, another Palestinian was shot dead today by Israeli troops for allegedly trying to stab a soldier at a checkpoint in the West Bank. An Israeli military spokeswoman said forces opened fire towards the attacker, claiming they were responding to an imminent threat. At least 233 Palestinians have been killed in violence in Israel, the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip since October 2015. Israel claims at least 159 of them were assailants, while others died during clashes and protests. Iraqi special forces pushed deeper into Daesh-held districts in eastern Mosul, and army units fought the terrorist group inside a military base in the city's north. In a statement earlier today, Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi said the military began movement against the group in the west of Mosul. He did not, however, specify what action was being taken there. In the 3 months after the start of the operation to drive Daesh out of Mosul, members of the group have been driven out of most eastern districts of the Iraqi stronghold. Rapid response units of the Iraqi Federal Police have secured many southeastern districts along the Tigris, and elite counter-terrorism service now holds large sections of the East Bank further north from where the Federal Police operates. Elsewhere in Iraq and in fresh violence, a car bomb blast in southern Baghdad killed at least 7 people and wounded 20. Police and medical sources said the car explosion hit the mostly Shiite neighborhood of Abu Sher. Daesh has launched its fiercest assault in a year against a besieged Syrian government enclave in the city of Deir ez-Zor, trying to cut it off from a nearby military airbase. Scores of people have been killed in the battle. A Syrian military source described the fighting as intense and said the attack was one of the most fierce attempts by the group to seize the city's airport. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 82 people have been killed in the fighting. It also reported that the terrorist group cut the road linking the airbase to the rest of the government enclave, meaning the army would be able to supply the city only by airdrops. The military source, however, denied the observatory's report. Daesh advanced into Deir ez-Zor and the surrounding area in 2015 and besieged the town last year, but the army retained control of the airport and neighboring districts. Turkish authorities have captured the gunman who killed 39 people in an Istanbul nightclub on New Year's Eve. Authorities said the gunman, an Uzbek national, was trained in Afghanistan. Of the 39 dead, 27 were citizens from Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iraq, Tunisia and Morocco. At least 69 people were wounded in the attack. Here's more.
Bruised and bloodied, this is the man Turkish authorities have been hunting for over 2 weeks. The suspected gunman who killed 39 people in Istanbul's Rana nightclub in the early hours of New Year's Day, identified as Abdulgadir Masharipov. He was captured in a raid on an apartment in an outlying suburb of Istanbul along with 4 others. The city's governor, Vasip Sahin, told local media that Masharipov has admitted his guilt, adding that his fingerprints match those taken at the scene.
His cover name is Abu Muhammad Horasani Abdulkavi. He was born in Uzbekistan in 1983. He was trained in Afghanistan. He is a well-educated terrorist who speaks 4 languages.
Sahin says authorities suspect he entered Turkey illegally in January and is linked to jihadist group Islamic State.
It is clear that this attack was carried out for Daesh.
Islamic State has been blamed for at least half a dozen attacks on civilians in the country over the past 18 months. But apart from assassinations, this is the first attack it has claimed directly. Masharipov is still in custody in Istanbul's police headquarters. 50 people have been detained in raids on 152 addresses since the shooting.
British Prime Minister Theresa May says Britain will quit the European Union's single market when it exits the bloc. May was delivering a decisive speech that quashed speculation she would seek a compromise deal to stay inside the world's biggest trading bloc. Setting out a vision that could chart Britain's future for generations, May answered criticism that she has been coy about her plans with a direct pitch for a clean break, widely known in Britain as a hard Brexit. In her landmark speech in London, May emphasized that Britain wants to remain a good friend and neighbour to other European countries. Here's more on Theresa May's Brexit plan.
Speculation of a soft Brexit has been firmly put to bed. Britain will leave the single market when it exits the EU. The Prime Minister unveiling her Brexit plans in London on Tuesday, and Theresa May confirming she'll trigger divorce talks by March.
And I know many fear that this might herald the beginning of a greater unravelling of the EU. But let me be clear, I do not want that to happen. It would not be in the best interests of Britain. It remains overwhelmingly and compellingly in Britain's national interest that the EU should succeed.
Following months of criticism she wasn't being transparent enough, May seemed determined to define the country's future as a global player, and one which would trade freely, far beyond Europe. The PM also took the opportunity to allay voters' concerns over unlimited migration from Europe.
Britain is an open and tolerant country. We will always want immigration, especially high-skilled immigration. But the message from the public before and during the referendum campaign was clear. Brexit must mean control of the number of people who come to Britain from Europe. And that is what we will deliver.
May stressed that no deal for Britain is better than a bad deal for Britain, warning the leaders of the 27 other member states not to try to punish Britons for voting to leave.
I know there are some voices calling for a punitive deal that punishes Britain and discourages other countries from taking the same path. That would be an act of calamitous self-harm for the countries of Europe. and it would not be the act of a friend. Britain would not, indeed we could not, accept such an approach.
European Union Council President Donald Tusk said May's speech was at least more realistic. But Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn accused the PM of wanting to have her cake and eat it. The Prime Minister said the final deal would be put to a vote in both Houses of Parliament.
Iran's President Hassan Rouhani is saying any talk of renegotiating a nuclear deal between Tehran and world powers is meaningless, adding that US President-elect Donald Trump cannot unilaterally cancel the deal. Under Iran's agreement with the United States, France, Germany, Britain, Russia and China, Tehran would shrink its nuclear program to satisfy the powers about not planning to develop atomic bombs. In exchange, Iran received relief from sanctions, most of which were lifted in January last year. But Trump, who takes office in a few days, has called the July 2015 agreement the worst deal ever negotiated. He has threatened to either scrap the agreement or seek a better deal. Speaking at a news conference on the anniversary of the removal of sanctions, Rouhani described Trump's remarks as empty talk, adding there's little he can do when he goes to the White House. In Brussels, meanwhile, Secretary General of the EU Foreign Policy Service, Helga Schmid, said Trump's foreign policy team had misunderstood the deal and it is not up for bilateral negotiation, having been endorsed by the UN Security Council. Still speaking of Trump, and since his announcement that he was running for President of the United States, he has taken to Twitter to voice his views and has been many times a source of criticism. And as he prepares to be sworn in on Friday as the next president, Trump did another of many blunders on social media. Trump retweeted a message from a Twitter user that said his daughter Ivanka was great, a woman with real character and class. But the user tagged the wrong Ivanka, a mistake repeated by Trump, and the message was directed to an Ivanka Majic in Brighton, southern England. Since the message was sent out, it has been shared by 4,800 people and liked by 25,000 more. The British Ivanka mentioned in the message, however, did not pass up the opportunity and offered the president-elect some Twitter advice. Former U.S. astronaut Eugene Cernan, who became the last astronaut to walk on the moon, died at the age of 82. Cernan was also one of the first men to go on a spacewalk. Cernan and fellow Apollo 17 astronaut Harrison Schmitt became members of the most exclusive club in the universe on December 11, 1972, when they stepped from their lunar landing module onto the moon's surface. Only 10 other people, all Americans, had undertaken the same endeavor before, and none have done so since. To the world of fashion, Austrian designer Lena Hoschek presented her autumn-winter collection dubbed Dollhouse at the Berlin Fashion Week. Inspired by a t-shirt her mother wore when she was pregnant with Lena, the designer took the bubblegum pink, leopard print and glitter of the 80s, as well as wide swinging dresses known from the 50s. Many of the wide swinging dresses and skirts made from cotton, jersey and lame, with names such as confetti dress or candy dress, also exude charm with polka dots, little hearts and specially made lipstick prints. In cooperation with the Walt Disney Company, Hoschek's collection also shows Mickey Mouse prints on some of the dresses. Serena Williams launched her bid for a 23rd Grand Slam title with a two-set win over Belinda Bencic in the first round of the Australian Open. Williams moved superbly under a hot sun to rout the Swiss in 79 minutes. With her 6-4, 6-3 win, the American set up a second-round clash against Czech Lucy Safarova. In In the men's draw, Rafael Nadal beat Florian Mayer of Germany in 3 sets. The 2009 champion seeded 9th grasped his chances ruthlessly to overcome the German in a little over 2 hours to win 6-3, 6-4, 6-4. He now moves on to the second round clash with Cypriot Marcos Baghdatis. Louis van Gaal will retire from soccer management after a 26-year career. The 65-year-old made the announcement yesterday after receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Dutch government for his contribution to the sport. The former Barcelona and Bayern Munich coach has not worked since he left Manchester United shortly after winning the FA Cup last May. Van Gaal also managed the Netherlands national team, Ajax Amsterdam and AZ Alkmaar during his career. As a player and coach, Van Gaal was involved in soccer for 45 years. And finally, chilly conditions continue in most regions for the rest of tonight, while remaining relatively cold in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea with light variable winds. Tomorrow, similar weather conditions prevail with a high of 16 degrees Celsius in Amman. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect warm conditions during the day tomorrow, while winds will be northerly moderate and the seas calm. Here now is the look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. Iraqi special forces push deeper into Daesh-held districts in eastern Mosul, and army units fight the terrorist group inside a military base north of the city. Theresa May says Britain will quit the European Union single market after Brexit, squashing speculation she would seek a compromise deal to stay inside the bloc. And Rouhani says any talk of renegotiating Tehran's nuclear deal with world powers is meaningless, and US President-elect Donald Trump can do very little when he goes to the White House. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Tuqan. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.